You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Yeah, I did just say party on down, Jackye. I did. What are you going to do about it?
Love it. Deal with it. Bam.
It's Friday. We're recording on a Friday, so you never know what's going to happen. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton, and welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast.
Whoop, whoop. Friday edition, but you're going to hear it on Wednesday, but that's not the point, folks. Just, go with it. We're on our Friday mode. So Jackye.
Yes.
Is it freezing in Waco?
It's like freaking freezing.
Okay.
Probably not. I mean, it's freezing for Arizona standards. It's not legitimately like under 30 degrees. It's like 50 degrees.
It's 65 here and it's freezing. Okay. I have the fireplace on and I'm under a blanket. I can't deal. I cannot deal. And our guest is also cold.
Right.
Our guest is also cold today, so we're going to let her introduce herself and talk about the weather where she is, and then we'll jump into it. So, Pam, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Pam Luk, and I do live in Northern California, where it's currently windy and like 54, which I know all the people that live in much colder places, they're like, what are you even talking about? But I will say this. They don't insulate houses in this part of the state like they would like in colder regions. So we don't have any near the insulation in folks. Anyway, it's chilly. I'm cold too. What are you going to do? But in terms of who I am,
in Arizona, we have insulation in Arizona, but it doesn't help. I'm still cold. Sorry. Please continue.
Oh my goodness. So yeah. So the reason I'm here today is to share a little bit about my story. And that is a long and complex one, but I'll condense it down. So yeah, I started a company called Ember Ace, which is an athletic wear line for plus size kids. I've been plus size my whole life. I mean, I think for me, it started, if you look at pictures of me in second grade, you're like, yeah, I think it's coming. And then by fifth grade, puberty sort of hits and you're like, oh, there she is. Okay. But I loved playing sports and I danced. So I played soccer from like elementary school all the way through high school. And I danced tap, jazz, and ballet, again, elementary all through high school. And by the time I got to high school, I struggled to find shorts that fit. I struggled to find leotards that fit. And this was more than 30 years ago. Thank you very much. And fast forward to today, I have a daughter who's a teenager in a bigger body and she dances and we're struggling to find leotards. And I'm like, how is this still a thing? How is this still a thing? So that's why I decided, okay, I'm going to go completely outside my comfort zone in an area where I have absolutely no professional experience and try to solve this problem. Yeah. And so
I love that you're just like, who's going to fix this? Oh, wait, me. It's
right?
me.
It's me, apparently. Because, I waited. I sort of like this idea had been in my head for a little bit, but I sort of was like, I did all the things that I think most people do. It's like, you don't have a background in design and you don't have any knowledge around apparel manufacturing. And so these things are sort of in my head and I'm like, but nobody's doing anything. So I'm a project manager. I was a project manager for a really long time. I'm a certified PMP. So I'm like, that's a very translatable skill set. I can use that to find people to help me and we can make a plan and we can figure it out together. And so that's sort of what I've been doing with mixed success. But yeah.
Well, I love the transformation from, a project manager to a clothing designer, manufacturer, all of those things. Like that is a switch. But to your point, yeah, it is very, I think anyone that is a project manager can kind of do anything. Like
I really wish people understood like what a tremendous skill set it is to have. Because what I always used to say about being a project manager is you have all of these groups of people and you have no authority over people or budgets, but you're supposed to somehow get all of them to move in a certain direction and contribute and meet deadlines. But I don't manage. This isn't my team. These aren't my direct reports. And I don't control sort of where the money goes, but I'm somehow expected to sort of steer this very large ship full of folks. So,
yeah. Pam, Jackye and I are both in HR, so we are extremely familiar with not actually being in, being the leader of a team, but asking them to do stuff for us. I'm sure pretty much everyone on this call can relate to that fact if they have children, if they're in HR,
mm-hmm.
if they're a leader in any capacity. Yeah, so very familiar, very familiar. So what type of dance did you do?
I did tap, jazz, and ballet growing up. And then when I got to college, actually, I started African dance. And I actually performed with the ensemble in college for 4 years. And it was one of the best experiences of my life because I'll be honest, I sort of allowed, different dance teachers that I had come across and other things to sort of steal my joy of dance. And that's sort of why I walked away from ballet and sort of those styles. And with African dance, my body wasn't a problem, right? It was one of the styles of dance where it didn't matter how I was built. It was really about, learning choreography and putting yourself into it and, using it as an expression, as an art form and performance. And I absolutely adored it. And so it was a wonderful experience for me to sort of take back a little bit of that love that I had for dance, which was fantastic.
I'm kind of still stuck on like, how is that still a thing, right? Because it's like there's so many that are so self-conscious, and I'm thinking of just putting yourself out there, especially in competitive sports, and you're like, okay, I'm going to try out for the team, right? And then, oh, I made the team, and now you have practice every day and twice on Saturday, and you're going to have to get these uniforms, and it's like, where do we go? And you can't show up with your best self if you don't know what you're going to wear, or you feel like it's not made for you, or I think that has to be part of stealing the joy.
Oh, for sure. And I think if you can imagine, a lot of these kids, the uniform challenges and fit probably start junior high school. So you're like, what, 14, 15 years old at that. And it's a really hard thing to sort of go to your coach even and say, this uniform doesn't fit me. A lot of kids will just quit because that's an awful lot at that age to sort of be able to speak up and say, look, can we try and find another one? And some schools don't stock larger sizes. Maybe an extra large is the largest that they carry. And so a lot of kids will walk away. And that's sort of what we see, the pattern. And a lot of times, like I said, they won't speak up about the why. They'll just say to their parents, I don't want to do that anymore. Because
that's the worst.
Yeah. Because they're worried about the shirt's going to ride up and expose their belly, or the shorts are too tight in the leg, or, so I think it's just something that if we were sort of paying a little closer attention, this is a very solvable problem.
I mean, I'd like to say, like, this is how old I am. This will tell you how old I am. So when I was a cheerleader, starting with this, it was considered like a novelty. So all of the uniforms had to be purchased by our parents, which sounds absolutely insane, but that's the way it went. And we had to weigh in every week. And if you were like over 117 pounds, then you weren't allowed to cheer that week. So, and they measured the skirt by the waist. And I remember I had a small waist, but I had this like big old booty. And so my skirt, because, that was back when we still sexualized girls. So it was really short, and I would stick to every chair in school. My thighs stuck to every single chair because it was always up, and you could always see my butt for my high school career. And it's like, this is traumatizing.
Yeah. And there's so many things in that whole story that are
there's lots. That's why I'm like, if it tells you how old I am,
honestly, is it really any different today? Is it?
No, but they have uniforms provided by the school board. That's all. That's the only difference.
And they're not going to carry them in a variety of sizes,
the fact of understanding that there's different body types. No, it's not, because you still, when you play sports, like I looking at your soccer, they didn't make uniforms for women's soccer when I was in high school.
Yeah, one of the solutions for me, because I started as a defender and then I became a goalkeeper like the last 2 years of high school. So I had to go to the men's section at the sporting goods store because I am also so old. I predate online shopping. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. Right.
So we had to go to the men's section at the sporting goods store. And I'm like hoping they're going to carry like an extra large or a double extra large, but still, like for the shirt, doesn't fit in the chest.
Right.
So I'm like, you do that thing where you tuck in your arms and like stretch it out. And that was the best I could do. And the pants were all too long, right? They're expecting me to be at least, 6 foot tall. And I'm like maybe 5'4" at this point. So yeah.
But like, I think the piece, and you're both kind of mentioning it, is the trauma that you suffer in that space of not wanting to tell your parents, not wanting to bring attention to it, not wanting to like it does, at some point kind of shuts you down. The weighing, I can't process the weighing children as cheerleaders. That one I'm going to have to let sit for a minute, Jackye. I'll come back to that. But just the clothing piece alone, the being uncomfortable in your own skin. And I think all of us, as adult women, we can say, oh, well, I now dress for the body type that I am. And that makes me feel better, and dress, so you can feel comfortable. But as a child, you don't even know how to express that. Or if there isn't, if there aren't clothing options available, what do you do? How do you express that, or know that you need to express it? Or do you, as you just mentioned, Pam, just shut down and say, I don't want to do this sport anymore, or this activity, or whatever it might be?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of instances where that's what kids do, is you just stop participating.
That's right. I also love how you size this instead of like extra large or extra, because that's the other part of, you have this labels that that you have to go in and get these various sizes. So I like the way that you size the clothes that you create. So it's not, because they're, these are the things that just mess with you mentally. They stick with you. And we talk about it a lot as terms of work, of being able to be your best self. And you can't be your best self if that's what you're concerned about. And I'd love to hear if you've seen some of the other impacts that has had as a result of being able to have your brand, some of the things that you've seen or heard.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've heard a lot from adults that are telling stories of how they wish when they were teenagers they could have had clothing like this, because it did take them out of something that they really, really enjoyed. And I think one of the biggest challenges for kids is people think you don't enjoy sports when you're in a bigger body, right? They think that you're not participating because all of these ideas they have about who you are and what you do with your body or don't do. And so, I think kids are just excited that they're like, I do like to play basketball with my friends, and I do like to play soccer, and, having an opportunity. I think for parents, keeping your kid connected, that's the other piece that we don't talk about. Like, yes, there's all the benefits to moving your body that have nothing to do with making your body smaller, but we also need to think about like the social and mental impact of keeping these kids engaged, right? Some of my memories that I have from playing, I can't tell you how many games we won in soccer. I can't tell you anything really much about the games. I can tell you a lot of stories about us on the bus rides for the away games and hanging out with my friends and spending time, right, with my friends and classmates. And, it's some of that stuff that I think you start to hear about and really want for these kids to have, is that opportunity to be on a team and stay connected.
I'm right there with you. Like I can tell you stories about, breaking my finger during a basketball game and having the coach just grab it and pull it out, thinking it was like just stove, but he actually broke it worse. I can tell you about all of the, sitting in the bus and all the shenanigans and all that fun stuff. And in Arizona, there were a couple of away games that were far, where we had to drive down to Nogales and things like drive to Yuma. And those were always the fun, but also very long bus rides. But yeah, like I agree. Like I couldn't tell you how many games were won or lost, but it's the feeling of participating. And you do think about, again, kind of what you see in the media And what you see, it's, yeah, if you're a bigger child, you're not going to be involved in sports, or you're not going to be interested in doing that, which is just a stereotype we need to break.
Mhm.
I think I don't know if either of you watched and I'm going to forget the name of it, but the cheer, it was like the school in New Mexico that has the major like cheer program. And I think the show was actually called Cheer. And they had like body sizes because they had male and female cheerleaders, and they had different body sizes, and it was great. And, other than the girls that were, being thrown in the air, who had to be a certain size just so they could be thrown in the air. It was great to see just different body sizes. And I think hopefully we're moving forward a little bit, even though it's taking longer than it should, because I think children, just any way that they can be bullied or marginalized or not be the same as the rest of the folks, that just doesn't feel great. So I love that you're doing this clothing line, because I think it's just so critical to be accepted. When you're
and to stay connected to the activities and people that you love, right?
Mhm.
And I think if people want to see what plus size athletes look like, go check out a lot of the folks that I follow at Ember Ace on Instagram. There are plus size people that run marathons, that run ultra marathons, that bike, that surf, that do all kinds of things. Basketball players, divers, you name it. And I think part of it is that when you don't see people in bigger bodies doing these things, it just sort of reinforces all these ideas you have. So part of it is getting kids to see people in bigger bodies doing these things. And then I also think for thin kids, seeing these other kids that are in bigger bodies doing these things, because they're also working on, it's important that everyone see these kids doing these things, and you challenge the ideas that you have in your head. Yeah.
You are right. I am plus size, and I did endurance events, and people thought I lied. I was like,
right.
I was like, no, really. I did that. I did
no,
a thing,
because if you did all those things, you'd be thin.
And people said, "Are you okay?" I remember, like, yeah, I'm just not a fast swimmer.
Yeah.
Sorry, lifeguard. You're just gonna have to wait till I get there.
Yeah, it's one of the things that comes up a lot when you do, like, if you do any kind of activity, sports or activity in public as a plus size or a fat person, people think you're a beginner. And
right.
you're like, I'm an endurance athlete. Thanks so much. I got this. I'm all right.
Yeah, I used to hang out with a group of women that we used to call penguins. We call ourselves the penguins, which was like, we're going to get there. If you watch a penguin walk, right, they're just kind of like, I'm coming. You cannot rush a penguin. There's it's just not happening. There's nothing you can do. And so there was a bunch of us, and we used to call ourselves the penguins. And it's known, like on the running circuit, there's a group of people that they call penguins. And those are the people who are like, I'm going to finish. Like, I'm not trying to be first. I'm just in it because you can still enjoy those things. And I feel like now, especially, we don't see kids just riding their bike or playing outside. You want to have these types of events where it is more structured. And so with that, comes that important piece.
Even looking at like rec programs in the summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
What size t-shirts do you have for your rec program? Yeah. And that's like, I understand when we're talking about highly competitive teams and people that are trying to play, Division I in college, I get it, but I'm talking about, that's not every school, that's not every program, and particularly recreational programs in the summer. Those should be inclusive spaces, but that means that those kids still need clothing that fit. Right?
Well, I wanted to ask, why do you call it Ember and Ace?
Yeah, it's a good story, actually, I think. When you start a company, one of the first things I do is look at what URL is available, because I think every single like iteration of every single English word under the sun basically is taken, and even like the weird spellings are taken. So, and I didn't want it to be my name. I just said that didn't feel like it was the right fit. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I was like writing like in my journal, like, what do I want this brand to feel like? What do I want it to feel like? And I wrote down the word embrace. I want to embrace these kids, and they need to embrace who they are, where they are. And that's where I said, what can I do? Ember and Ace comes from the word embrace.
I love that more than you know.
Because they're actually two words, right, that are real words. And because every iteration of the word embrace was like not even a thing. So going to happen. So, yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah, that is a cool, like, it's just a cool name and it's a great story. And yes, the domain name is the most important thing to any brand that you have to think about before we did it when we were naming our podcast.
Right?
It was like, okay,
That's
what
right.
should we do? How should we name this?
Yeah.
And it takes forever.
And then you have to like do the search and like cross your fingers. Like
Yes.
you're like, okay, let me Google really quick. Okay, it's good on Google. Now let me actually go to like the state business registry.
That's right.
Yes.
Like, come on.
I work for Textio. It's on sale. That's why not only was it available, but they chose Textio because it was on sale for 2 years for like $20 or something. When they went to do them. They're like, oh, we'll just name it that. Everyone tries to make it into you're like, no.
As a GoDaddy shareholder, I appreciate that. Please continue buying them all up.
So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just hope that it all comes together, and there you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So can we ask about, one of the things that I know you talk about is really having conversations with children about body diversity, and how do you approach that? What are the ways? And, from a parent's perspective, from, maybe you're a coach, different things like that. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of levels to sort of getting comfortable with that. I think I just want to remind everybody that it's okay to not get it perfect. And it's okay to sort of even say to your kid, I'm going to try here and I don't know if I'm going to get it exactly right, but here's what I want to talk with you about, and sort of owning that this is like, just because it's awkward and hard doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about things. And it doesn't mean that I have to be perfect in how I talk about things. And so I want people to just sort of let go of that need to be perfect in these conversations. And I also think there are some very easy things that everyone can do. And I would start with, please stop talking about individual bodies, including your own. I think a lot of people don't even realize the kind of things that come out of their mouth on a daily basis about themselves, about other people they see, about celebrities, just a lot. There's a lot of body talk. And I think we would all be in such a better place if we just sort of pulled way back, even making what you consider to be positive comments. There's a comment I read once on a thread that I just will never forget. And this woman said, when people were commenting me on, how thin I was and how great I looked, she was deep in her disordered eating at that point and very unhealthy. And so even when you think you're paying someone a compliment, it's a space that I think we really need to be more mindful about. So when you talk about bodies, think about starting by be aware of the kinds of things you're already saying about bodies now and maybe don't realize. And then I think the other thing to really focus on is that bodies come in all different sizes and bodies change all the time. All the time. And especially when you're talking about kids, puberty is wild. It's wild. So, I mean, and I'm going through perimenopause now, so it's gotten wild again over here. But so, I mean, the idea is bodies change all the time, and that's an okay thing. And weight goes up and down, and you're going to hear a lot about, bodies that are better than other bodies, and that's just not the case. But I think the other thing with kids is try to listen, and also try not to instantly like make it all okay. Let them sort of process a little on their own, and just hear what they have to say about some of their experiences. And the other thing I read, I can't remember who said it, I apologize, but it was like, if they're struggling with their body, that you could say, well, your body is good. All bodies are good. And I will hold that for you while you sort of work through this on your own. And I will remind you of that while you sort of are figuring some stuff out. It's hard. And I have good days, bad days still. I want the other thing that you're still going to have good days, bad days. Right? I think we all have like, it's the good and bad with like, say, like social media. I follow a lot of amazing plus size people, and on some days I'm like, oh yes, let's go. And then so on the bad days, I'm like, I need to not be on social media today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
You know, it's interesting because I think what you're saying, like what it reminds me of so much is, you know, when like, hey, we have bad days and good days. So do kids.
Yep.
And I think that's something that as adults we've been taught, like, no, you need to discipline them if they're, you know, acting a certain way or not excited or whatever it might be. And this is such a prime example of that, of whatever is going on in their body, who knows what might be going on in their head to join that, you know, circus, because it is, you know, they're evaluating their body. They're looking at who's standing next to them in the gym class. They're looking at all these TV, all these different things, and they're allowed to have bad days. And so I love the idea of just like listen to them and listen to their experiences of what is it like for them. Because while there are so many parallels to what we experienced when we were kids, there's also a lot of very different things. And I mean, I think all of us know about just the levels of bullying, the social media bullying, and, you know, what can happen to children in those situations, in, you know, the worst possible situation. So I think I love the idea of just letting kids sometimes have a bad day and but also process what's going on.
And that's exactly it, right? Process it, but don't let it turn into a permanent sort of perspective. Emotions are like weather, right? It's like there's going to be sunny days and rainy days, but the rain never stays forever. So, and I think
is so true.
Yeah. And I think for coaches, the one thing I want coaches to think about is when you have kids in bigger bodies, to treat them like you treat your thin athletes. And by that, I mean, don't say you'll be better when you lose weight. Everyone can improve their endurance, their strength, their stamina, their speed. Everyone can improve their skills. Everyone can improve how they show up, the effort they put forth. And I want you to give that same sort of lens to kids, regardless of body size, and notice the improvements, even if the body doesn't get any smaller, because that's often the case, right? You can improve all of those things as an athlete, and your body size might not change at all. As you're building muscle, right? Things you could see absolutely no change on the scale. And that doesn't mean they're not improving, and that doesn't mean they're not a strong athlete and a competitor.
Well, and like you said, like in going through puberty, that's like a whole nother thing where you don't know what's happening. And then you already, you know, there are kids that have periods, right?
Yes.
So it's like, you know, and that which correlates with mood. I always laugh. I was off school for a week, like for every year until like from 6th grade until I was like a sophomore, until my mom was like, it's your period. Like finally it was like, oh, but it's like during that time frame, all of these things were going on. And then I felt like, you know, you can accomplish the world later. In the time, there's a lot of emotions that we're going through, and having those things of being prepared. I just feel like I keep identifying with of being able to show up and be able to do the thing. That's always I think the hardest part, even as adults, is being able to show up and just being able to, whatever the thing is, being able to do that and have that support and making it easy. And that's what I think I like about the Ember Ace, that you have a site to make it easy. Like, here's a site, and you can do that instead of having to dig all over the place or going to all over the place and trying to figure out what to happen. And I guess now, do schools still have rules over like school uniforms for athletics or PE? Like, I'm just wondering.
Yeah. I mean, I think it varies so widely. And, you know, school uniforms is one of the areas that I have not dug into too deeply, because I'm also just, you know, coming up on high school where this is kind of more of a thing. But I mean, I think there are typically, I think schools do provide the uniforms, but I think there's vendors, there's like a bunch of vendors that handle a lot of school uniforms. And I think it would just be a matter of let's look and see who offers extended sizes and are they available for us to purchase right now. And if they're not, pick up the phone or send an email and be like, look, if you want to keep being the person that provides uniforms for this school, we're going to need you to provide extended sizes, but for, all genders of uniforms for my kids in this high school, or we're going to find somebody that will. Right.
That makes me think of something that I distinctly remember from like grade school is, the very generic uniforms that we would have for whatever sport it was.
Mm-hmm.
The folks that were plus sized, it was a different material, or it was a slightly different color, or it was just enough off that you knew it was different.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just another like almost microaggression, I would say, of like, you're different, you can't fit into what everybody else can fit into. And so, yeah, I think having those conversations with your vendor to say, no, we want all of our kids to be in the same colored shirt or whatever it might be. And it just seems so simple, but it makes such an impact.
Well, and again, even if you have thin kids, you can still support this effort, right?
Yes.
Even if your kids are thin, if you see a rec program and you're like, hey, I noticed that your t-shirts for your summer program only go up to an extra large for kids. I'd like to see you add some additional sizes. Or, somebody was talking about how they went to a summer camp and the kayak was only weighted up until like 195 pounds for a camp. And they're like, okay, this is something else where you can again say, we want to see, all your equipment rated above a certain weight limit, particularly as you're talking about high school kids, right? So there are ways that you can also, even if your kids aren't bigger, make sure that you're using your voice to help support these kids being included.
It makes me like, you're right. And we always are talking in the DEIB space about allyship and what does that look like? And, a lot of times it feels like, oh, well, I'll just be an ally to the people I know, right? Or my next door neighbor or my cousin-in-law, where it's like, no, we're trying to like remedy these wrongs. We're trying to make it like things more accessible. And for a lot of it, it is an accessibility issue, like of having the access to the same things as everyone else. And so if you're not giving that access, you would think it would be more obvious to make sure that those things happen.
Well, I mean, even as an adult, I just had something come up the other day where one of the organizations I volunteer with gave out vests for everybody. Do you think they have one in my size, y'all? No, they didn't. So, yeah.
Makes you want to go back and volunteer every day, doesn't it?
Sign me up.
I'm like, am I gonna have to like freestyle with this thing? And like, should I come in and like take out the seams and like put a whole wild like patterned panel?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. But
funny.
I think that's also knowing the population of the US, and we are all, I think, very aware of the fact that we do have a population that is larger. And so it is also just like well, no duh, like we need to have these things available for folks. And when we don't, it doesn't make sense. And I think people just don't think about it. It's again, as you just said, Jackye, it's the allyship piece of, are you thinking about everyone who might not feel included in this environment or in whatever space it is? And I assume, and obviously you're going and you're doing something that is volunteering to do good in whatever your community is, whatever the effort is, but it's just that little, pinprick, that mosquito bite, whatever you want to call it, of maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I'm not someone who should be doing this work or whatever it might be. And that adds up over time, as we know. So
yeah, it's
just unfortunate that it's just not thought of.
Yeah. And I think the more that we can sort of start early with, particularly with kids, I want these kids to have a good relationship with their body. I want them to enjoy movement. That's the other thing is you can kill the joy with kids moving their bodies so quickly when you make it painful and awful and about trying to force your body to be smaller. There are so many like adult rec leagues. Like I know a bunch of adults that still play, softball or basketball or all those kinds of things. But if you have squashed this kid's interest when they were 13 and, exercise was a word that was about trying to force them to eat less and make their bodies smaller, and they reject movement, right? And they reject this thing that can be such a great part of your life for a very long time. And so it's sort of getting to that space where we can really make a difference.
Well, that
early.
trauma continues going on. I mean, it goes on until adulthood. And, it's one of those things where you don't realize like that impacts how you see yourself, your relationships with your partners, how you show up in the world. And there are, at the, like, I can remember, like, I was always one of the big kids and being told that and just thinking that without even, and then when you look back, you're like, no, I wasn't, like, or it's like, sure, I was a big kid, but I wasn't like all those names that people called me. Like I shouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
But you will keep that in your head. Like, oh, I don't know if I should take those opportunities. And the other part is that, like you said, it's just like the best scenario. I mean, we laugh, but that's painful. And it's like, how does this keep happening still?
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the term, the plus side kid, PSK.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit, how did that come about? How did you come up with that term?
I did a little research. Actually, the term plus size I'm a little older than the term plus size as well. It started around the 80s. I will say that personally, I do refer to myself as fat. I have sort of reclaimed the word fat. It's one of those words that I think has always carried a lot of other negative sort of assumptions and labels about what it means, as opposed to just being a neutral descriptor of a body that has more fat tissue on it than others. So I do refer to myself as fat. And that's a journey that I've been on for like years and years and years. But I decided, I think no one should ever have that word used until they're sort of ready and comfortable. And for some people that may never be the case. But I think particularly with kids, I think it was a really hard and fast way for them to just kind of shut down if I referred to kids as fat kids. Because it's such a tough thing to navigate, and it's just really, really tough. So plus size is a term that's used actually across the apparel industry. There's actually plus size modeling awards, and that does cover both the female and male categories. So it's a term that sort of has crystallized. And I wanted parents to know and be able to find me, right? When you're trying to do searches and find people that make clothing in your size, I wanted to choose a term that sort of aligned with the industry and would make it so people could find me. I mean, because there's some of the terms we use, like especially when I was growing up, do y'all remember like husky for the boys section?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was about to say. Husky. I remember husky.
It's so terrible. And I know a lot of adult women and stuff use curvy, which is creepy with kids. So.
And I'm not curvy. That's what I told.
Right?
Like, I'm full. It took me a long time to know. It's like one straight curve, like apple shape. Like I'm like one straight curve. That's not curvy. And it was some generous person who was kind at like Macy's that was like, you're not curvy. It was like, no, so, it was good. It was positive life changer.
Right.
Because I was wearing the wrong size forever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, plus size is where I've landed. And then I do talk about kids being in bigger bodies. That also feels like those are the phrases that you'll hear me use the most. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's a tough space to navigate when you're young. And so those terms feel approachable and a little less scary, like I said, than referring to people as fat or not. Yeah.
Well, and I'll also say, just as a curvier, I don't know what I'm supposed to call myself.
You get to decide. You get to decide.
Well, so I went shopping for jeans yesterday, and one of my very dear friends, I was like, I can't find any jeans that I'd like if I get them and they fit me, then they stretch out and like feel like they're falling off of me an hour after you put them on. And so I actually did cave, and this is not a product plug in any way, shape, or form, but I did cave and support the Kardashians and get some good American jeans.
I like the good American jeans.
They're very great jeans. Yes, they're very comfortable, and I'm very happy. But I was, of course, also cracking up because I'm like, because I don't really want to give money to the beast.
Same.
That is the Kardashian empire, but bless.
Yeah.
God
And I
bless
will
them.
say this, I say this to everybody that wears a size that is not the kind of size where you can just walk into any store and just pick it off the rack and walk away. If you wear any size that is difficult to find, give yourself some grace. I get it. Like, I know it's hard, but you're like, I need to have pants that don't slide down and that fit my body. And so please, you know what I mean? And, as someone who's never been able to walk into every single store and just pull off the rack and bag it and walk out the door, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And so whatever you need to do it. Like, I will never give anybody a hard time.
Amen. And I also literally was like, I don't want to go into any place to buy jeans because I don't want to be shamed because I'm not a size 6 or a size 8. Like, I want to feel good about this experience as well, which kudos to Nordstrom's. They did a lovely job of that. Like, and so it is also that, I mean, I think we all, as again, adult women, and now putting yourself into a child's mindset, like, I'm still at the age that I am, not having a good time if I'm going shopping and I can't find a size that I like. Imagine that as a child. And you said, Jackye, that sticks with you for a really long time.
And the Good American brand, like I do have, but I was very excited that they actually fit. But also that's a place of privilege. Those are expensive. When you're a kid, you can't make those determinations. Like, there's like 3 different brands. I always fall on Levi's because I know, that they have my size and that I know how they fit, and but at the same time, I did that the other day too. And again, you want to show yourself grace, but to a kid, they have that extra burden of, this is really important to me, and it's getting close to 6 o'clock, and I know that you've worked really hard, and I know all these various things, and it's hard enough. I remember, it makes me think of, especially when people say you wear a white button-down shirt. Like, I could never wear a white button-down shirt. And that was always the go-to because everybody can fit a white button-down shirt. And no, you can't.
Right.
Yeah. That reminds me of, like, I don't know if you have, when you have like elementary school age kids, and then for the winter concert every year, at some point you need the white button down and the black pants. And the panic, because sometimes the school was really slow with giving you what the like requirements were. And I'm like, I have to order it online. You have to give me at least 2 weeks notice, because I'm going to have to order it online because I can't find it in a store. And you think this is, like you said, a very easy thing to find this button down and to find these black pants, which, by the way, my kid's going to wear one time. And I luckily have the privilege of being able to provide that for her, because I want that to feel seamless for my kid.
Yes.
Just like every other parent, I don't want this to be a friction point with her going out and doing this performance. But I'm like, you've got to remember that not everybody can just walk into Old Navy or whatever and find things that are going to fit their kids. So you have to give me time. Yeah.
Right.
They're giving me a lot to consider.
Yeah. And I have, like I said, I do shop online a lot for my kid. That's one of my sort of solutions when you have a kid in a bigger body, because we can't walk into a store. But it can still be, it can be hard.
Absolutely. So would love for you to share, and and we'll kind of go around the microphone here. What are some things that you want to make sure people heard during this episode? What are some things that are, key takeaways that you want to make sure folks think about?
Definitely be mindful of how you talk about bodies, including your own. Let's see if we can. I'm not going to ask you to change your thoughts because that's rough. And just remember, thoughts aren't facts. But see if we can collectively decide to stop talking about bodies quite so much. And then just listen with your kid, sort of see where they're at, and just probe a little bit if you think that, there's concerns about why they're not participating in sports that they used to love or dance and things like that. And be prepared for maybe some painful truths. Yeah. And for kids, I would say there's nothing wrong with your bodies. And I know you love sports, and I know you love dance, and I know you're good at it because I was too. So keep dancing and keep playing sports.
Awesome.
I love that.
Thank you. Jackye?
I want people to remember these are athletes.
Yes.
And they need the proper equipment in order to athlete. Is that a word? Athlete? But these are athletes and they need the proper equipment to partake in whatever, activity that they're in. So this is not optional. This is a requirement. Just do it. You have to, and do it in advance. So if you're listening right now and it's like still February when or March when do it now to make sure that, this summer and as we go into the school year, if you haven't done it before, do it now so that you're ready and prepared for these athletes to be able to have what they need.
Absolutely. I would say a couple things. Go to Ember and Ace and buy all the things.
Thank you.
And I think that the one that you just kind of mentioned is the kids are already dealing with so many friction points. There's so many things that are happening in children's bodies, minds, at school, at home, with friends, all of these different things. This shouldn't have to be a friction point for them. And to have this just be solved simply by, hey, let's make sure we have the right sizes. Let's make sure there's a website that they can get the sizes, all of those things. I think it's just critical to taking one thing off of their plate, one thing off of their little minds that they are worried about. So,
yeah.
Pam, thank you. We truly appreciate you joining us today and sharing with our listeners, all of these conversations. We just think it's important for folks to hear about different topics that might be impacting themselves, their kids, work, whatever it might be. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts and sharing your brand and for doing this work. It's so critical.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all inviting me to come by. It's been fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton.
Bye.
Bye.